So far, we have built a very solid understanding of the Python programming language. Now we are going to understand what exactly are variables and data types in Python. So throughout a Python program, we create a lot of variables, and these variables are nothing but memory locations. Data stored in memory location, to be precise. Why do we store data in memory location? Because we want to manipulate it throughout the program. Let us say you want to change somebody's name and convert it to uppercase. This is going to be a really very simple program which will take name as the input and convert the lowercase characters to uppercase character, and then finally provide the output as all the uppercase characters. In order for Python to run this program, it will have to first load it into the memory. Once the program is loaded into the memory, which is also called RAM, the random access memory, it is executed line by line. During the process of line by line execution, you can create a lot of variables of different data types. For example, you can create a variable of type string in order to store name or a piece of text. You can also create another variable with data type as integer, where you will store, let us say, somebody's age. You can also have a floating point data type where you are going to store somebody's CGPA. A variable is created the moment you assign a value to it through assignment operator. Equal to is an assignment operator in Python. We are going to see how exactly these things work in our computer screen. Let me create a folder called variables. So I'll say 03 underscore variables. Let's close this folder and open this folder in VS Code. So shift right click, open with code, and this folder has been opened in VS Code. Now let's create a new file called main.py, and let's start by creating a variable. So let us say I say age is equal to 34. This is a variable. The name of the variable is age, and 34 is the value stored inside the variable. Now this is very similar to the container that we have in our kitchens. There is a container which is used to store rice. There is another container which is used to store sugar. There is another container which is used to store coffee. And you can have multiple containers in the kitchen which will store multiple things. In this case, age is storing 34, which is a number. The data type of this variable is integer. Now let us say I want to store my name as well. In order to do that, I'll say name is equal to, and I'll use double quote to indicate that this is a string. And I'll say Harry. Now looking at this value, I can tell that yes, this is a string. Looking at this value, I can tell that this is an integer. And looking at this value, I can tell that this is a floating point number. Let me call it float, and let me call this one string. So this is how you create different types of variables in Python. Now there are some rules set by the language. What exactly are those rules? These are the rules which specifies what kind of characters your variables can contain. And these rules are a part of the syntax of Python programming language. I'm going to add notes to these files so that it is easy for you to revise later on. By the way, I am also going to give you a handbook, so do not worry much about noting things down, but rather focus on understanding these concepts, because understanding the concepts is the key here. Before we discuss the rules, let me tell you that Python is a dynamically typed language, which means that you don't have to explicitly specify which data type a particular variable contains. In this case, we don't have to tell that age is an integer, and in a very similar way, we don't have to tell that name is a string, and also we don't have to tell that CGPA is a floating point number. Python automatically looks at the value and figures out that this is a floating point number, this is a string, and this is an integer. This is called dynamically typed language. On the contrary, statically typed languages like C needs an explicit declaration of whether a variable is an integer, floating point number, or a character. Now Python programming language being dynamic is very convenient to work with because the data type is automatically inferred. Let's now talk about rules of defining a variable in Python. The first rule says that variable names must start with a letter. You can have A to Z, uppercase A to Z, or an underscore as a variable name, but they cannot start with a number. You can start with A to Z, you can start with an underscore, you can also start with capital A to Z, but not with a number. In a very similar way, they can contain letters, numbers, and underscores. Numbers can be included, but a variable cannot start with a number. We are going to see some examples of that, so don't worry. The third rule says that variable names are case sensitive. Age and capital Age are two different variables. Avoid using Python keywords. If, for, while are reserved words in Python, and you don't want to use them as variable name. Sometimes this is going to work, but you don't want to do that because it sometimes result into weird errors that you will definitely not want to run into. So let's see some examples. Let me tell you if this is a valid name. No, this is not a valid name because 34 starts with a number. So if I say 34 age is equal to 4, this is invalid. Why is it invalid? Invalid because variable cannot start with a number. Okay. So a variable cannot start with a number, but age is equal to 32 is valid because this is valid because variable can start with a number and it also follows all these other rules. Let me comment this out because this is producing an error in our program. Now if you say a $GE is equal to 45, this is also invalid. Invalid because variables cannot contain special characters other than underscore. You can have underscore in the variable name, but you cannot have any other special character. So if you have underscore age is equal to 34, this is valid because it is following all the rules. If you have underscore nice underscore 45 is equal to 34, this is also valid. If you say a underscore b underscore c underscore 7 is equal to 34, this is also a valid number. You can even have a string here and you can say a underscore b underscore c underscore 7 is equal to Sam, and this is also valid. All these are valid variable names. Did you notice something? Visual Studio Code has automatically identified that this is an invalid variable name. Do you see this red underline? This is VS Code telling you that this is an invalid character inside your variable name and you don't want to include it in your program. So this was about the rules of defining variables and some examples in Python. Let me comment this line out because I don't want this to produce error in my program. Let me rename this file as 01 underscore basics.py. Now Python supports several built-in data types. What are those built-in data types? We have integers, we have floats, we have strings, we have booleans, lists, tuples, sets, and dictionaries. I'm going to discuss more about lists, tuples, sets, and dictionaries in our later videos. But for now, let's understand what are integer data types, what are floats, what are strings, and how booleans are created. Let's get started. So if you want to create an integer, simply say age is equal to 3 and your integer variable has been created. How do I print this variable? Simply say print age and let's run this program and you'll see that the value of age has been printed. You can do the similar thing with a string variable and you can say name is equal to Harry and you can do something like print name and the name will be printed on the screen. So if I run this program, you'll see 3 and Harry displayed on the screen. Let's do the same thing with a floating point variable. I can say CGPA is equal to 4.9 and let's make it 8.2 and let's do something like print CGPA and let's run this program. So we'll see 3, 8.2 and Harry printed on the screen. So this is how you create an integer, a floating point number and a string. Now booleans can have only two values. It can either be true or it can be false. These are the variable types which can be used to specify whether something is done or not. So let us say that you have a lot of tasks and you want to mark some tasks as pending and some tasks as completed. So in order to mark one task as completed, you can have something like is completed is equal to true. We are going to create some applications like that, but for now let us say is completed is a variable which can either be true or false. This can also be false. There are only two values that it can take, either true or false. Now make sure that you type this out correctly. The T of true is capital and F of false is also capital. So make sure that you don't make mistake there. And then you can do something like print is completed and then press enter. Let me show you something. Is underscore completed was a variable name. And in order to type this out, I just typed I and C. I from is and C from completed, and VS Code was able to figure out that I'm going to type is completed and I can press enter and it auto completes. These are some of the features of VS Code that makes the life of developers really very easy. I'll show you more features of VS Code as we go along with this course, but for now this is one of the features that you would definitely want to use. Now let us say I want to figure out what kind of variable is age, whether it's an integer, whether it's in a string, whether it's a floating point number, what exactly is this? So in order to figure that out, I can print type of age. So in order to find out the type of this variable, I'll simply say type and then I'll say age. And if I run this program now, it shows me the output as class int, which means that this variable is an integer. In a very similar fashion, I can do something like type of CGPA and then type of name and type of is completed. And I'll simply type IC and it will autocomplete for me. Let's run this program now. And the output of this program is 3 class int, 8.2 class float, Harry class string, and true class bool. This indicates that this is an integer, this indicates that this is a floating point number, this indicates that this is a string, and this indicates that this is a boolean type variable. Awesome, so this was about variables and data types in Python. Now we'll talk about these data types later in the course. But let's have a quick look at them briefly. List is a ordered mutable collections, meaning that you can have multiple elements in a list and you can have them in order. Tuples are ordered but immutable collections, which means that you cannot change them. We'll see more of tuples in later videos, but this is how you can create a tuple. Sets are collections of unique elements and they are unordered. Dictionaries are key value pairs. Let us say you want to store marks of different students. You can do that with the help of dictionaries. But don't worry, we'll see all these data types in the later videos. I hope you were able to understand what are variables and data types. I'm going to give you all this code. Don't worry about noting things down, but focus on understanding. Programming is not about memorizing. It's about understanding the logic, understanding how things are working. I hope you are enjoying this course. See you in the next video.